Alright guys, welcome back to the KDMculture PH/vipcars channel. It's your boy Jag, back at it again with another episode, and today we're going to be talking about the cons or the disadvantages of owning an air ride system for your vehicle. So like the previous video, we're going to be naming 5 of the things that I believe are disadvantages or the not so good aspects of air ride suspension. So with that being said, let's get to the intro, and I'll get back to you guys in a little bit. All right, peace. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about some of the cons of or disadvantages of owning air ride suspension on your vehicles. So let's get into it. So for the very first one, now this depends how you look at it. So the very first one would be the pricing. Of course, the price of air suspension do vary from something around 45 to 50k all the way up to 150k plus. So depending on how you look at it, it's still quite pricey. It's going to be one of those mods that you're going to end up spending a lot of money on, much like wheels and tires and you know, a good set of coilovers. But do your own research first. Make sure that air ride suspension is what you want for your vehicle, because there are other options out there. And like I said, for the pricing, it can get quite expensive. There are some basic packages that'll start off, like I said earlier, from 40 to 50 range, and can go all the way up to 150 and plus for the top tier brands. And I always like to refer or advise people to do their own research, because you are paying a lot of money to get your air suspension installed. So you want to make sure you get the you know, the best bang for your buck, and you get your money's worth when you're spending this type of money on modding your vehicle, because it's not a joke, you know. There are plenty of other companies and places out there that offer air suspension installation. You just got to be careful, because I've heard of a few places out there, I'm not going to name any shops or anything like that, that you know, do provide or offer cheaper prices when it comes to the air suspension systems, but they tend to cut corners when it comes to installation. So you want to watch out for those type of shops. You want to make sure that you get some good referrals, or people that have referred you to that shop specifically because of their good experiences and the way they have handled installation on, you know, the vehicle, or whoever referred you to that shop. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of good shops out there that charge a fraction of the cost of one of those, you know, of any of those top tier services or shops that charge a lot of money for your air suspension needs. So like I said, that's the very first one, which is the pricing. Can get a little bit expensive, but that depends on how you look at it. For the second thing we're going to talk about, or the disadvantage, I would say, would be your unexpected expenses when it comes to installing your air suspension system. Now, when they first take a look at the underneath of your vehicle before planning on setting up your air suspension, they're going to check some of your suspension components. And depending on how old your car is, if your car is a little bit older, chances are some suspension components may or will need to be replaced, so that way they can get the best performance when reinstalling or when installing your air suspension system. That way you don't have to go back and forth fixing and replacing parts, and chances are the shop that's doing your installation, if they're a good shop, they would advise you which parts need to be replaced immediately and which parts can hold off and wait, because once you get air suspension installed, replacing parts can get a little bit tricky. There are other shops out there that won't touch your car because it's on air ride, and you'll have to take it back to where you initially had it installed before you can get that part replaced. So it's always ideal to have a little bit of extra budget when taking your car to getting the air suspension installed, just in case some of the components may need to be replaced, so that way they can replace it right there on the spot, and you can have everything working and being efficient, having the system as efficient as possible when installing an air ride. So as for me, based on my personal experience, I've actually had to replace my front and rear shocks prior to me getting my air suspension done, because the car is 10 years old, so it was due for that. That's the usual wear and tear these vehicles experience anyways. And when I got the upgrade done recently, I also had the shock mounts and the stab links done as well, just for my peace of mind, because I was hearing a bunch of noises underneath the car. So I wanted to make sure that I get those sorted out before I get the system upgraded, so that way when I have it thrown on there, I won't have any issues and I won't have to go back there and get them replaced again. I did choose personally to upgrade these parts just so I can have a peace of mind, because I didn't want to have to keep going back and forth, having to get these little small parts or these cheap parts replaced, having to go all the way to the shop where I got the air suspension installation done just so I can get a small part replaced. So I wanted to just get it all sorted out right then and there, so that way I won't have any problems or issues in the near future when it comes to my air suspension or my under chassis. So it's also given, I want to say that it's also a given fact that having air suspension will probably, or will more than likely, shorten the lifespan of your suspension components because of the way the car sits. Sometimes you air it up, air it down. That puts a lot of stress on some of the suspension components that they usually don't undergo. Yeah, that's just to keep in the back of your head. Just keep that in mind, that I was advised that, hey, your suspension components are probably going to be a lot shorter, or their lifespan is going to be a lot shorter when you get air suspension. But I guess that just comes with the territory. You got to pay to play. But yeah, that's it for number 2. And like I said, it's just the usual wear and tear, so just keep that in mind, and the suspension maintenance. Alright, so for the third thing I want to say would be, maintenance can be a little bit tricky. If you don't take the proper precautions and you don't take care of your system, just like any other thing, just like your car, things are going to break, and things will eventually, usual wear and tear will cause some malfunctions, some issues. But other than that, based on my experience so far, I've prior to getting my whole entire system done, I actually had my front shocks, my rear shocks replaced, and my stab links and my shock mounts done as well, because I wanted to have a peace of mind when I had the air suspension installed. I didn't want the under chassis or the suspension components to start making noises after I got the air suspension done, therefore giving me a headache, because I have to go back to the shop where I got it installed at to go get these parts replaced, because there are some shops out there that will not touch your car if it's on air ride, because they're not familiar with how everything works. They may end up rupturing a line or breaking something that they're not supposed to, and it's just going to be a headache. So with that being said, I think it's it's not so bad. So as long as you take care, you're up to date on your maintenance, you watch out for certain things, you keep an eye on your tanks, your bags, your airlines, make sure it's not ruptured, make sure it's not getting caught up on anything, make sure your bags doesn't rub on anything underneath the car. And like I said, I've had some components replaced, but it's not so bad when you think about it. At the end of the day, you want peace of mind to make sure that your system is working properly and it's not gonna break anything underneath, because depending on your car as well, if your car is a little bit older, chances are there are some wear and tear on your suspension components already, and you're gonna need to get that replaced. So you might as well get that replaced before you get the air suspension done on your vehicle. So that's just a little tip for me, based on my experience. I think that's the way to go. Save a little bit of extra money for suspension components that may need to come in or need to be replaced when you get that done. So yeah, that's it for number 3. All right, so for the 4th thing of the disadvantage of having the air ride system, I would say would be the noise. I mean, it's not that much of a big deal to others. Like for me, it's not that big of a deal, but the noise that the compressor makes or the pump makes, here, I'm gonna go give you guys a quick demo. And you see, when the pump kicks on, it's a little bit loud. There's a lot of vibrations going on, but hey, it's only on for about 5-10 seconds sometimes, or sometimes it's not even 30 seconds. You know what I mean? So it can get a little bit loud, especially for your passengers that are not used to it. They'll probably get a little bit surprised, a little bit shocked to hear the compressor kicking in when you're airing up the car and that sort of thing. But other than the noise, that quick little noise, you know, if you can deal with that, if you can learn to live with that, you're fine. I think it's more prominent if you have a hatchback. Then it would be a lot noisier if you had a hatchback, that's for sure. The only tip I could recommend would probably be to, you know, it's quite risky, but you can put it underneath your trunk board at your spare tire location, but you won't have a spare tire, so in case shit happens, hey, you're shit out of luck. You know what I mean? But it'll be a lot quieter if you put it down there, and yeah, you won't feel the vibration as much. But of course, a little bit of noise is still going to be there. So once you get the air suspension installed, you'll learn to live with it. So, you know, eventually you become desensitized to it. You know, it becomes normal to you after a while. So it's not that big of a deal. It's not a deal breaker for me. But if it is for you, then hey, maybe air suspension is not for you. So do your own research, like I said. All right. So that's it for number 4. All right, and for number 5, last but not the least, we all know that shit happens, and you know, you never know when something's gonna go down, or when something's gonna break. But when it does, it can get a little bit tricky. And if your system fails, chances are you might get stranded. If you only have one pump and it gives out on you, for sure you're gonna get stranded, because the car, if you're aired out and you're not able to, you know, air the car back up, you're gonna get stranded. You know, it can get a little bit tricky. So that's why for me, I didn't want to have that problem. So I got another pump installed just in case one goes out. I got a backup. It's for assurance, reassurance, and I'm sorry, insurance, I should say. So hey, make sure to always be up to date on your maintenance. Check your system, and you know, doing this regularly and frequently will avoid or help prevent putting yourself in that predicament, in that situation where you're not going to be able to do anything but call for rescue, call for help. And you know, we all know that hey, like I said, shit happens. A tire blows out, you know, you don't have a spare tire because you got your system installed on the spare tire location, then you're shit out of luck. You're gonna have to get it towed or get somebody, hopefully somebody, to help you out. If your system fails for whatever reason, whether it be a part or the entire system, just know that you're gonna have a bad day, and that's a guarantee. You know what I mean? That's already given. You're gonna have a bad day if something happens. It's not a matter of if and when. It's a matter of when it's gonna happen. It's not if and where. You know what I mean? It's gonna happen, but hopefully you'll be prepared for it. So that way you have that much less of a headache. But I mean, we all know it's gonna come eventually. You know what I mean? So I think that's more of a general statement. That's not really a cons with getting the air ride system. But yeah, I mean, if something goes out on your air ride system, it sucks. You're definitely gonna have a bad day. So just keep that in mind. But I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy or a Debbie Downer. But I'm just speaking facts. You know, I'm just keeping it 100 with you guys. And anyways, yeah, that's the 5 things that I mentioned were the cons or the disadvantages of having an air ride system. And I hope you guys took some knowledge or learned a little bit from it. If not, hey, that's fine. Do your own research. But other than that, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, I appreciate the views. Leave a comment. If you're not subscribed yet, make sure you do. We're almost at 1,000, so you know we're getting there. And I appreciate you guys for supporting. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Like I always say, treat yourself, don't cheat yourself. It's your boy Jack, and I'm signing out. Peace. Waking up and